You are beautiful, period.
Racism, environmentalism and sexism, all recurring themes at this year's Cannes Lions Festival of Creativity, the ultimate showcase of global creative excellence. On this week's Mags on Media, we'll take a look at some of the big winners and also speak to advertising legend Sir John Hegarty about the industry's ability to affect real social change. Also, why a leading chief creative officer doesn't feel the advertising industry is taking itself too seriously in a time of purpose-driven creativity. In this, the 65th year of the Cannes Lions Festival of Creativity, purpose-driven creativity taking centre stage. An excess of 32,000 entries were received, down from previous years, but the number of brands who entered rose by a staggering 84% year on year, showing increased engagement from industry marketing leaders. Now, with nearly 4 decades in the advertising industry, Sir John Hegarty is arguably one of the global industry's most respected leaders and also one of its fiercest critics. Hegarty was in the south of France to reveal his latest project. It's a powerful cinema campaign for the United Nations World Food Programme, which will be released in 25 countries in September this year. It's called Feed Our Future. It's a multi-pronged campaign highlighting the potential that there is a lot every time a child dies of hunger. I asked him whether he thinks that the world of advertising is doing enough to affect real social change.
I think it does a lot, but I don't think it does it in a very focused brand way. My slight criticism is you get an awful lot of charity effort and a lot of ideas, but they're not brand-led. They're not, I am trying to really do something that's going to be effective and help build a long-term brand in a very competitive marketplace where people are appealing for money all over the place. How am I doing it? So, yes, they do a lot. But I have to say, I think it's done to win awards rather than to be effective for that particular charity.
How do you change the mindset?
Well, I think by beginning to say, we're not going to start awarding another World Wildlife Fund ad that has no relationship to any other. We will judge it as a campaign. We're going to look at it as, is this building the World Wildlife Fund brand? And if it's not doing that, it's out. So, you know, I don't want to stop people doing this, but I want them to go, we've got to do it and be effective.
When you're doing something with an altruistic purpose or motive, is the creative approach any different to a commercial campaign?
No, I don't think it is, actually. I think the advantage is actually to treat it like a brand campaign. What's your point of view? How am I going to be different? How am I going to stand out? What's our USP? Or what are we saying that's going to change people's mindset? All of those things you use in a brand campaign. And I think the great advantage that we have is understanding how to make campaigns for soap powder, for jeans, for cars, whatever they might be, effective in the marketplace. Please, let's use that thinking for the United Nations World Food Programme.
That could be the strategic approach, but in your head, you must feel differently about it, surely. It's more important, isn't it?
Well, it is, but everything I do is important because it's my time. And it's wonderful to be doing something like this. It's wonderful to be applying my time to... I wish I didn't have to do it. I'm having to do it because 3 million children each year die of hunger. So that's an appalling thing I'm having to do here. In many ways, I'd much rather be selling Audis, but I'm not. I'm having to do this because it's there. But the approach to it is to sort of take all that learning, all that understanding, and all that passion that hopefully you put into selling jeans into this. I mean, I think, you know, in Picasso painted Guernica, he was painting a picture. He felt very powerfully about it, but he used all his skills as an artist to bring that issue to bear, just as he did when he was involved in Cubism or changing the way portraits were painted. So I don't, you know, it sounds weird, but you don't suddenly go, oh, now I've got to do this very differently. No, you use all the skills you've got and you've honed.
So what then, Sir John, would be the quantifiable outcome of a campaign like this? In other words, what do you need to achieve?
Well, you know, it has a very simple objective. Please download the app, share the meal app, and then you can donate. You can donate for the smallest amount of money. You will be surprised what will feed a child for a day. And that's something you can do, and you can feel good about that. And what you're doing by doing that is also you're safeguarding your future. Because who knows, human capital is the most important thing that we have. You might have saved a life that's going to go on and invent whatever, and you're going to benefit. So it's investing in your future.
One of the worries that you would have, I'm sure, is overcoming donor fatigue. How do you do that?
Of course I am. You know, just
this has got to rise to the top, hasn't it?
As I'm concerned that there are too many jeans being sold out there are too many cars being sold out there. I'm concerned about all those things. So the extra application of creativity with strategic undertow, so to speak, carrying it along, is fundamentally important. And fundamentally important, we don't keep changing the message, that we build a long-term campaign.
You were quoted some time ago as saying that advertising agencies need to constantly fight for great ideas. I wonder, in this age of reticence, of parity, whether that is becoming a whole lot more difficult.
Well, I still firmly believe in that, and I think that we've become too obsessed with technology. Technology is fantastic. In fact, it's wonderful. I love it. We're using a piece of technology now. I mean, I'm being able to talk to, hopefully, millions of people via this wonderful interview with a bit of technology. But being obsessed about technology is not getting the message over. We've got to still remember that creativity is the way we connect with people. And we've got to fight for that, fight for the importance of that with our advertising, with our communication, with whatever it is that we're doing. And it can't just be a technology answer. I mean, technology, as I said, is crucial, but it's not the answer. Has
the fight become more difficult, given that there's so much reticence from brands to take risk?
Well, it's always been hard. Let's not, imagine that there was a wonderful era where everybody bought everything you did and creativity was fantastic and all those things. It's always been difficult. I think it's being challenged now by a belief that you sort of don't need it, but obviously you do. And people will wake up, and those brands who take advantage of it will be the brands that succeed.
This word storytelling, at every point at this conference, that's the buzzword that you hear. It's overtraded, isn't it? Hasn't it always been about storytelling?
Of course it's been about storytelling. It's always been about storytelling. I always tell the story. Here's a story. I was at a digital conference about 15 years ago. I was speaking at it. And the guy in front of me had got up and he'd spoken. He said, because we can now have one-to-one conversations, we don't need storytelling anymore. And first of all, I'm thinking, how does this idiot get a platform? And secondly, I'm looking at the audience and half of them are nodding in agreement. I'm thinking, what's happened to these people? They're complete idiots. Since the beginning of time, storytelling has been fundamentally important to communication. The way you tell a story, the kind of things you can use in the story change, evolve, whatever it is. But, we're still listening to Romeo and Juliet by Shakespeare, written 400 years ago. Storytelling is fundamental to who we are and fundamental to communication.
Now, speaking of great storytelling, Procter & Gamble and the agency BBDO New York snagging the Film Grand Prix for a hard-hitting spot called The Talk, which formed part of a series called My Black is Beautiful at this year's Cannes Lions.
Who said that?
The lady at the store.
That is not a compliment.
Listen, it's an ugly, nasty word, and you are going to hear it. Nothing I can do about that. But you are not going to let that word hurt you. You hear me?
There are some people who think you don't deserve the same privileges just because of what you look like. It's not fair. It's not.
Remember, you can do anything they can. Difference is you gotta work twice as hard and be twice as smart.
Come straight home after practice. You got your ID? Yeah. Guess I stopped it. How's your review?
We're good.
You good?
Yeah,
You see?
We're good.
Okay.
Good. Now, when you get pulled over...
I'm a good driver. Okay?
Baby,
Don't worry.
this is not about you getting a ticket. This is about you not coming home.
I'm gonna be okay. Right? Okay.
It's not fair. But you keep showing up.
You are not pretty for a black girl. You are beautiful, period. Okay? Don't ever forget that.
Next on the program, some groundbreaking environmental work that got the judges nodding in agreement, and why this creative leader feels the industry isn't and shouldn't be taking itself too seriously.
I think humour is a real craft.